Hi folks, Jason Webster here. Welcome to this episode of Inside PTI. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, today I thought we'd spend a little bit of time talking about cover crops and some of the work we're doing with cover crops at the PTI farm. So here's what we do with our cover crop program. We're using cereal rye and barley. It's a 50% blend of each. We will harvest our fields, let the combine get out of the field. We come in with a grain drill and we'll drill it immediately. Okay, using that grain drill to get good seed to soil contact and get that cover crop up as soon as possible because we know we're going to have a limited length of a growing season. As you can see on the left of the screen, you can see that my cover crop species up out of the ground. Once we get it established up out of the ground, we're going to come through with our tillage program, which I know is difficult for a lot of growers. For us, we're going to bring a strip till bar in. And we're going to strip till right through the cover crop that we've planted and got established here at the farm. Why are we doing this? Well, you know, some folks would call this cheating, but we're going to make that strip till band, that dark, wide band. We want it about 10 inches, 8 to 10 inches wide. And we're going to use that for a couple different things. We're going to use it, number one, to warm the soils up in the spring, okay, so we can plant quicker. We're going to put fertilizer in this strip, so it'll be waiting for that new crop of corn or soybeans that we're going to plant into this. And the other thing is it makes planting into it in the spring really easy. You know, I've eliminated most of the cover crop in the strip. My residue managers aren't fighting with it. My planter's not fighting with it in general. And we can really manage this effectively. It's been a really nice program for us at the PTI farm. Here's my planter, you know, coming in, and you know we're going to terminate the cover crop. Our rule is we're going to terminate at 12 inches tall of that cover crop when we're planting corn. When we have soybeans going to this, our termination is going to be at 24 inches tall on those soybeans. It's what we do, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what we've been utilizing here at the farm, and it's been working fairly well. I've had the opportunity to talk with a lot of growers over the winter, this past winter, as we've been traveling on our PTI Farm winter tour. And I asked farmers, I said, are you currently using or trying to implement a cover crop program on your farm? And it's about 50-50. Half the growers said they were trying to use cover crops while the other half said, no, we are not using a cover crop. And this was a survey to about 1,000 growers across the Midwest this winter. Now, I then asked the growers, those 1,000 growers, I said, okay, half of you that are using a cover crop, do you feel you've been successful with it? And this, I think, is interesting. About a third of the folks say, yep, it's been working for me and I'm very happy with it. Another third says, no, I don't believe it's working. It's a failure. But then look at this. The last third, they're just not sure yet, which means they've had successes and they've had failures too, and they're just trying to figure this thing out. And this is not surprising to me as we talk with growers. This is very typical of what growers will say. At the PTI farm, we've got 3 different crop rotations that we're analyzing cover crops in. We've got a corn after corn rotation, a corn after soybean, and a soybean after corn rotation. This is going to be a 10-year program at the farm. We're going to look at replicated strips of cover crops within these 3 crop rotations for 10 years to get a good look of what's happening. What's the economic picture of this? Are my soils getting healthy, and am I able to get increased yield as a result of increasing soil health? All right, let me show you my yields. Let's start with corn after corn. Again, this is a 10-year program. We're through year number 2, so I've got 2 years of yield data, and in 21 and 22, my yields are very stable. I've got a 1.2 bushel loss in my cover crop replicated strips. Am I happy with this? It could be a heck of a lot worse. It's only 1.2 bushel loss. Doesn't sound like a lot. However, you know, this was 2 years in 2021 and 2022 where we had $5 and $6 corn. That needs to be, that needs to be calculated here. And then the big one is I've got a cost of seed and drilling it. And so when we factor all that together, let it be known, let it be documented that after year 2 of my 10-year program in a corn after corn rotation, I'm losing 30 bucks an acre. Okay, I'm funding the program up to this point. But we're not losing tons of yield on this thing. We're just trying to get soils healthier and waiting for yield response. Let's go to first year corn. No yield different here whatsoever. We're actually 1/3 of a bushel higher, but we got to take into account drilling it and the seed cost. And so with that all factored in, we're about $21 down on a per acre basis. Soybeans are very similar, 0.23 bushel yield advantage, so there's no yield drag here, but with the cost of drilling and the seed, I'm down $21 an acre. So I'm kind of in a waiting mode here. I don't know that my yields have been negatively affected. I've been happy with that. We've been able to manage it. And again, with the strip till, I think that's been a big help with this system. But I don't know that I've seen real gains yet, and we're in waiting mode trying to figure out when do the gains start happening in this 10-year program. I want to show you an article that I saw one time, I guess over the winter here, and it's from the Earth Observatory. This is NASA folks that put this together, and the title of the article was "Midwest Farmers Using Cover Crops Take Yield Hit." And so I got thinking about this. I said, well, the question in my mind was, if I'm going to implement a cover crop, are you supposed to suffer yield losses? You know, the corn and soybeans you're going to plant into that cover crop, is your yield supposed to go down? Because I just showed you my 3 crop rotations, and I don't know that I'm losing any yield in my cover crop program. Granted, I'm not making any money on it, but I'm not really losing yield. So this article by the Earth Observatory at NASA really caught my eye. Look at this map right here. This is where the Earth Observatory and NASA say with cover crops planted in the Midwest. You can see states like Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. The dark red on this map shows a 10% yield hit in corn when farmers implement a cover crop program. And this really caught my surprise. A 10% yield hit on corn. Look at Iowa. Look at the dark red there. It's saying that Iowa's got some of the biggest losses associated from planting a cover crop. There's some of it in Illinois too, some of it in Indiana, all the states really, but this really caught my eye, and I'm questioning myself. I'm like, why are these farmers losing corn yield when growing a cover crop? Now look at the number of acres. NASA, or the Earth Observatory, says, you know, on the left of the screen you see cover crop acres planted from 2000 to 2010 compared to 2011 to 2021, where there's more cover crop acres. So I put 2 and 2 together here and say, wait a minute, growers are planting more cover crops than ever before, but yet they're losing yield, corn yield, by trying to do a good thing, trying to help soil erosion, having nutrient sequestration, increasing soil health, doing all those good things to give you warm and fuzzy feelings with a cover crop, right? But yet they're losing corn yield. And I want to know why. You know, I think one of the biggest reasons that we don't have yield loss here at the PTI farm is how we're setting it up. Now, I told you earlier, we're coming in with strip till. We're making that nice black, that black band that we can use to warm soils up. We're going to band fertilizer, our dry fertilizer in the fall. And then we're not done yet. We're going to come back in with the planter, and we've got at plant fertility liquid fertilizer that we're going to apply in this band as well to protect that corn or soybean row that we're planting. I don't want any competition from that cover crop, and I'm going to protect it so nothing gets slowed down. Now, 𝗫𝗄 is a big part of our cover crop program here. I mentioned our at plant fertility, okay? This is where we're going to come in on the planter. We're going to use 𝗫𝗄 in a dual band fashion to put things like nitrogen, potassium, sulfur, boron on the planter in the strip in a dual band fashion. Again, I mentioned it before, putting a wall around that new row of corn that we're putting in, and so nothing's going to compete with each other. Look at the screen right now. Look at that cover crop, that green cover crop. When I plant corn into that today, think about the root systems. That cover crop, that cereal rye and the barley, has already got an established root system, and my fear is it's going to compete with that new crop of corn that I'm putting in that band, and that's what we don't want to happen. So I'm going to set it up with my strip till, the dry fertilizer, okay? I can come in with 𝗫𝗄 and put that dual band liquid fertility on, and everybody's happy. Then I terminate the cover crop. Hopefully I get nutrient sequestration, that cover crop being able to bring more nutrients up, and that new crop of corn that I'm planting in that strip is just off to the races and everything is great. But This is not happening across the Midwest, and this is why I think growers are losing yield of their corn and soybeans when implementing a cover crop. For instance, I did a study in 2021 where we simply looked at nitrogen in corn. And I said, well, wait a minute, I got a cover crop out here. How am I going to feed my corn nitrogen when I have an established cover crop in the field? Now, some folks would say, well, we're going to do surface dribble application of nitrogen. Now, this just looks at nitrogen. A lot of the times we're using potassium, sulfur, and boron in the mix with this as well. But this just looks at nitrogen. Surface applying or dribbling nitrogen out the back of the planter versus using conceal. Again, that dual band, building that wall around the corn row. Surface banding or dribbling lost me 14.4 bushel. In other words, putting a soil engagement of a dual band conceal nitrogen surrounding that corn plant increased yield by 14.4 bushel to the acre. Take that times the price of corn, and that's a $72 winner. And I guess we could probably change this up and say, okay, this $72 is a result of using conceal, soil engaging, putting it around, building that wall around the corn plant. Let's say I'm not doing it, I'm dribbling nitrogen. Remember, it was 14.4 bushel down. This $72 per acre positive turns into a negative then. And here's the thing that really scares me here, because if you remember, say my corn after corn crop rotation, I was losing $30 on a per acre basis. A 1.2 bushel yield loss times the price of corn, and then you got to figure in the cost of seed. I was down 30 bucks. Let's just say we do our fertility program wrong. Okay, I showed a $72 gain with conceal. Let's say you don't have that program, you're dribbling over the top, and now all of a sudden that's a $72 loss. You had 30 to 72, and ladies and gentlemen, that's $102 per acre loss from your cover crop program and the fertility program you have initiated in it. And this is the thing that I go back to the Earth Observatory and NASA's report on how growers are losing yield. And I can see it now. I just don't think we can manage nutrition. And I think that cover crop is competing with the new crop we're planting. And that's why we're losing yield. And that's why we're losing dollars on a per acre basis. So today's InsidePTI tip of the day is, cover crops offer improvements. I'm very, very pro cover crop. I think cover crops can increase soil health. I think it can reduce soil erosion. I'm really interested in nutrient sequestration. I'm looking at maybe better weed control over time, moisture retention, having increased organic matter and residue, holding moisture in place. And then if there's some carbon programs that you might be able to take advantage of, cover crops could get you into that, maybe offer you some payments, at least to cover the cost of seed maybe. But we know there's some challenges with cover crop, and I think seeding issues, a poor stand due to everything kind of fighting in the row on that planter. You have competition with the new crop. Remember what we talked about, that root system of the cover crop that's already established. Will it fight with that new crop you're planting? Alleliopathic properties of that cover crop really affecting, say, a corn crop. Those are things that really worry me. Insect pressure. We've had a hard time if we don't terminate. One of the reasons on soybeans we terminated 24 inches is because we've had such a hard time with voles and slugs when we let that cover crop get larger. One of the other things we're looking at as a challenge of cover crops is we put a lot of tile in to offer good drainage of our soils. We really want to look at tile, maybe some of the roots getting down into the tile. Another reason we're terminating at 12 inches on corn and 24 inches on soybeans, just so that maybe that root system can't get too deep and get into a tile. But those are some of the things we're thinking about as challenges. I think our success in cover crop has come from strip till and the banning of dry fertilizer that we talked about. We're really setting it up for success. Not only with the planter not competing with all that biomass and vegetation at the day of planting, but think about how we're going to feed that new crop. The dry fertilizer in the strip, and then our dual band conceal while we're planting, just not slowing that corn plant down and making sure it has a great day. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you've got any questions about anything that we've talked about, feel free to shoot me an email at InsidePTI@precisionplanting.com. If you want to reach out to any of your precision planting premier dealers, I'm sure they'd love to talk with you about this subject as well. We will see you on the next episode of Inside PTI. Thanks so much for watching.